Yes. May I?
সব আপনি একটু রেস্টে থাকেন। I'll call upon the names. Ejaz Ahmed Akib means I have Datacom recovery midterm exam. Jahidul Islam, পড়ো।
Yes. The requirements engineering process can be described in six steps: requirements allocations, requirements analysis,
Elicitation.
uh,
হ্যাঁ পড়ো।
requirements analysis and negotiations, requirements specifications, system modeling, requirements validation, requirements management.
ওকে, আমি এটা বুঝিয়ে দিই, তারপর তুমি আবার পড়বা, ঠিক আছে? So we basically have 6 different phases in requirement engineering. First of all, requirement elicitation. It means you have to go to your client. You have to understand the requirement, then come back and discuss with the team. Again, you go back to your client and you gather requirements. So this is called bringing out the requirement by poking your client. Okay, so after you get your requirement, there could be different types of techniques, fact finding techniques to do the elicitation. There could be survey, questionnaire, survey questionnaire, and other things also. So after gathering the requirement, you have to analyze and negotiate, analyze the requirement. So after getting all the requirements, you have to be, and then you negotiate. Suppose your client has given you 100 points, you will negotiate and bring it up in 30 or 40 or 50. Then what you do is you specify the requirement. In specification, basically you classify and you prioritize, and then you start system modeling. Then you start doing requirement validation. Requirement validation means preparing the requirement document and do the technical review. And then requirement management starts. Once you develop the system keeps evolving even as your, okay. কে পড়বে এটা? রিকোয়ারমেন্ট ইনসাইটেশন তুমি পড়ে, জাহিদুল।
It it might it might seem that this should be simple. Ask the customer, users, and others what the objectives for the system are, what is to be accomplished, how the system fits into the needs of the business, how the system will be used on day-to-day basis. In fact, it is hard. Problems of scope, problems of understanding, problems of val- volatility. Volatility.
Okay, what did you understand about from this particular slide? It might be seems that this should be simple. So you have to go to your client in different way. You have to ask them questions, okay, to understand what's happening into what's happening into their mind regarding the software or the system they want. Okay, you can ask different type of questions. So I'm not repeating them. So okay, so that is the hardest part ever. So you have to understand the scope of the problem. You have to understand You have to have the full understanding on the problem, and also you have to get rid of requirement volatility by not asking same type of question and getting same type of answer again and again. So problem of scope, poro, again poro.
The boundary of the system may be little different defined who is going to interact with the system, what other systems are involved, exactly what functionality is the responsibility of the system. The customer user may specifically unnecessary technical detail that may confuse overall system objectives.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Disconnect to your Hello, can I see the screen?
Yes, we can.
आपने सारा क्यों उत्तर देना क्लासेस? You're the only attentive person in the class.
Maybe there is means
Okay.
আমি তো উত্তর দিবই।
The problem of understanding customer user may not be completely sure what it's needed. See what you can do to help. Marketing director or textile business, whoever it is, try to improve the project, have a poor understanding on the capabilities and limitations of computing equipments, not have a full understanding of the problem domain, have trouble communicating needs to a system engineer, omit information, behave to be obvious, specify requirements that conflicts with needs of others, specify requirements that are ambiguous or untestable. Requirement volatility, requirements changes over time. Change is inevitable in most systems due to factors such as change in customer organization, change in scale, extra changes, external changes, and customer gets new ideas as they become aware of system possibilities. So it's common. Say change is a normal nature for anything. So for softwares also, changes are very natural, very normal, but it's important how we cater it and how we handle it. Okay, so requirement volatility will take place also. Requirement analysis and negotiation now comes with, now let's talk about requirement analysis and negotiation. The product of requirement elicitation from the basis is the basis of requirement analysis. So after getting your requirements, like written requirements in whatever fact finding techniques you get, so you have to analyze the requirement. So, requirement analysis comes with categorizing requirement, explore relationship between requirements, examine requirements for consistency, omission, and ambiguity, prioritize requirements based on customer user needs. So, after getting the requirements, while when we analyze those requirements, we classify into two categories. One is functional requirements, another is non-functional requirements. For functional requirement, we have some in specific format to write the functional requirement so that it can be later translated into design and code very easily. But the non-functional requirement, while we'll be identifying the non-functional requirement, we have to do everything by ourselves, starting from identifying and putting them to client's mind and take the sign off from them. Okay, everything, because your client is not knowledgeable enough to identify what are your building blocks. You have to do it proactively every time. For an example, your access control, your security layers, okay, your performance of the system, everything. So for that, uh, you have to brainstorm by yourself, and you have to write the requirements, which are non-functional requirements, after identifying the appropriate ones and take it to your client. Examine requirement. Acha. So you always have to understand that requirement should be consistent. Consistent means একটার সাথে আরেকটা যাতে consistency থাকে ভালো omissions. Omission means if you have duplicate requirements, you should omit them. Ambiguity. You cannot accept anything which is not, uh, you know, not not justifiable for implementation. Okay, don't take anything like একটা requirement বলা আছে যে ক্লায়েন্ট বললো যে ওকে ফাইন, আমি এই সফটওয়্যারটা প্ল্যানেট মার্স থেকে গিয়ে চালাতে চাই। হ্যাঁ, it doesn't mean তুমি ওরা প্ল্যানেট মার্সে নিয়ে যাবা and you will establish a connectivity between planet Mars and Earth and give it to him. It cannot be like that. So he needs to only rational requirements you have to take in consideration. So after classifying the requirement, we have to prioritize the requirements. So prioritization is very important. Which module will come first, second, third, respectively. So you have to sit with your management or steering committee and decide, okay, fine, this feature will develop in our first increment or sprint, whatever you say. In the second one, I will give you this. In the third one, I will give you the entire project. Okay. Another thing I would like to tell you, like if you have a very long project, six man month or 1300 man days, the 1300 man days, etc. So don't try to develop and deliver in one shot. Otherwise, কি করবে তোমার client মনে করবে যে in last six months the company to whom I have given the work, they have not done anything. Okay. So try to involve your client in not every, twice a month, or মানে কিছু না কিছু একটা রিলিজ দেওয়া উচিত, অথবা ক্লায়েন্টের সাথে গিয়ে একটা মিট আপ করা উচিত। হ্যাঁ, মাসে একবার, পারলে দুইবার। ওকে, সো দ্যাট তোমার ক্লায়েন্ট বুঝতে থাকে যে ইউ আর স্টিল ওয়ার্কিং উইথ দেম। Requirement analysis questions. So there are some questions what you can ask to your client while doing requirement analysis. আমি পড়লাম না, তুমি এটা পড়ে নিও। Now comes requirement negotiation. Madhabai point requirement negotiation.
G. Requirements negotiation. It is common for customers or users to ask for more than can be achieved. Also common for different stakeholders to propose conflicting requirements. For an example, cost requirement from management versus performance requirement from users. Each party might argue that their requirements is essential. Requirements engineer must resolve these conflicts through negotiation. Prioritize requirements, discuss conflict in this order, identify risks associated with requirements, produce estimates of development effort for each requirement. In an iterative process, modify, combine, or eliminate requirements so that each stakeholder gets some satisfaction. Done, ma'am.
Okay. So requirement negotiation means it is common for customers users to ask for more than that can be achieved. They will come up with lots of requirements. Some of them are not feasible for your system, or some of them are not needed. Okay. So you have to understand them and you have to omit them. Also common for different stakeholders to propose conflicting requirements. There are some conflicting requirements. For example, এখানে বলছে যে cost requirement from management versus performance requirements from users. Each party might argue that the requirements is essential. Okay, so you should not go to some conflicting, তুমি যতগুলো ইউজার নিয়ে কাজ করবা অতগুলো ইউজার যাতে সবাই সহমত হয়ে রিকোয়ারমেন্টটা দেয়, এরকম কোনো রিকোয়ারমেন্ট দেওয়া যাবে না যাতে একটা ইউজারের কনফ্লিক্টে চলে যায়। Okay. So requirement engineer must resolve this conflict through negotiation, prioritize requirements, discuss conflicts in this order, identify risk associated with requirements, in fact, okay. So in an iterative process, modify, combine, or eliminate requirements so that each stakeholder gets some satisfaction. Modify, combine, or eliminate. Okay. So here basically you have to funnel out your requirements. You cannot take everything together. You cannot take a trash together, right? এক একজন এক এক রকমের করে বলবেই, but you have to identify which ones to keep and which ones to omit. Now come requirements management. We have noted that changes in requirement. So changing is very positively expected in Bangladesh. So not in Bangladesh, in everywhere around the world, around the globe. So this is a part of requirement management. So we have noted that changes in requirement. So requirement management helps the project team to identify, track, and control requirement and change to them. This closely related to configuration management. Traceability tables are developed for requirements. Even so requirement management দুইটা important part হচ্ছে, একটা হচ্ছে CR ম্যানেজ করা আর একটা হচ্ছে traceability metrics আপডেট করা। ওকে, traceability tables কেউ একজন পড়েন প্লিজ, মাথা পাই পড়েন।
জি, traceability tables. Features traceability tables show how requirements relate to customer observable system features. Source traceability table identify the source of each requirements. Dependency traceability table show relationships between requirements. Subsystem traceability table categorize requirements according to subsystems they govern. Interface traceability table shows how requirements relate to internal and external system interfaces.
ওকে, আপনি তো বুঝতে পারছেন, বাকিরা কি বুঝতে পারছে? So in requirement management, one of the biggest important part is requirement traceability. Okay. So we have different types of traceability tables: feature traceability, source traceability, destination traceability, system traceability, etc. But in this class, we will talk about only one kind of a traceability matrix. This is bidirectional. You start from your scope document, then you go to your feasibility, then you go to your requirement document, then you go to your design. Parallelly, you also develop test cases. So when you go to the testing department, you have your SIS in hand, you have your BRS in hand, and you also have everything linked to it. Then after completing the testing, we do. Okay. So traceability can in many types, একটা one way হতে পারে, একটা সাথে একটা ট্রেস করে করে যায়, অথবা বায়োডিরেকশনাল থাকে। ওইটা তো তুমি যে ওখানেও যে জিনিসগুলো পাইছো ওগুলোকে ট্রেস করে নিয়ে আসে। ওকে, সো ডিটেইল আমরা পড়বো না এখানে, ডিটেইল আমরা রিকোয়ারমেন্ট ইঞ্জিনিয়ারিং কোর্সে পড়বো। Okay, now can anyone read functional and non-functional requirements and domain requirements? কেউ পড়বে না, মাহাতো ভাই আপনি পড়েন।
Sure. Functional and non-functional requirements. Functional requirements. Statements of services the system should provide, how the system should react to particular inputs, and how the system should behave in particular situations. This is all about the functional requirements. Non-functional requirements is all about const- constraints on the service or functions offered by the system, such as timing constraints, constraints on the development process, standards, etc. Domain requirements is all about requirements that come from the application domain of the system and that reflect characteristics of that domain.
Very good. So we basically have two types of requirement: functional and non-functional. Domain requirements are not considerable nowadays, but we are still focusing on functional and non-functional. Your functional requirements are basically the features that your client wants. So by looking at the feature, you're not able to develop the system, right? To understand it more betterly, you have to have a quality management. um, Okay, the features that you gather are your functional requirements. Standard of services of the system should provide how the system should be react to particular input and how the system should be in particular situation. So how the basic functions functions are working or put together. The second one is non-functional requirements. These are like the constraints of the service or fulfillment effort by system. Non-functional requirements are, as I have said, the building blocks of any system for which what we are. Constraints of the services or functions offered by the system, such as constraints contained on the development process, standards, and etc. Domain requirements are also very important, like in which domain you are going to place your uh, piece of code. So requirement can come from the telephone domain, so the system and that reflects software engineer characteristics of the domain. So functional requirement describe functionality of the system services depend on the system software, expected users, and the use of system requirements. Use of system where the software is used. Functional user requirements may be high-level statement of what the system should do, but functional system requirements should describe the system services in details. Example of functional requirements: the user shall be able to search either all of the initial set of database or system or the system shall provide appropriate viewers for the users to read documents in the domain store. For order shall be allocated a multiple identifier. Requirement complete and consistency in principle. Requirement should be both complete and consistent. They should include description of the facility requirement consistent. There should be no conflicts or consideration in the discrepancy of the system facilities. In practice, it is very difficult or possible to produce a complex system requirement documents. Requirement completeness and now this is the requirement functional requirement table. After identifying the different functions of from the system, like ওকে, তোমরা কি দেখতে পাচ্ছ এই স্ক্রিনটা? হ্যালো,
Yes, miss.
আমি তোমাদেরকে বলেই দেই, ফাইনালি আমি একটা কোশ্চেন করবো, একটা সিনারিও। ওখান থেকে যে কোনো দুইটা ফিচার নিয়ে তোমাকে এই কি বলে এই ফাংশনাল রিকোয়ারমেন্ট লিখতে হবে, নন ফাংশনাল রিকোয়ারমেন্ট লিখতে হবে, ওকে, আলাদা করে। সো দিস ইজ দ্য টেবল where we write functional requirements. First of all, we identify the name of the feature. So we write, and then we decide what are the inputs, activities, and outputs. So then we write a precondition. Users should have this view. Okay, so you have input, set of input, process, and output. Then here specialized. Okay, after putting it like ধরো এই যেটা করি, এই ফিচারটার নাম হচ্ছে রিপোর্টিং স্টুডেন্ট বুক ডিউ ইন দ্য লাইব্রেরি সিস্টেম। হ্যাঁ, সো এটা ইনপুট কি স্টুডেন্ট, ইনপুট বসে বসে এন্ট্রি দিচ্ছে স্টুডেন্ট, and then process. So after giving the ID, student ID, they process a student ID, verify the date range, should book it. Okay, so and then you have some preconditions. Preconditions in কি কয়, যেমন ধরো এখানে আমরা স্টুডেন্ট বুক ডিউ লাইব্রেরিতে দিতে গেছি, কিন্তু লাইব্রেরিতে টাকা ছিল না, কিন্তু লাইব্রেরি লোকটা okay. So verify the student ID, verify the student date range, books, and then organize the data in a predefined format. Then you have precondition, postcondition, and alternate options. So এই টেবিলটা নিয়ে কারো কোনো প্রশ্ন আছে? তোমরা একটু পড়ো। যে কোনো রিকোয়ারমেন্ট যদি দেই, আমি ফাংশনাল রিকোয়ারমেন্টস গুলো বের করে এই টেবিলের মধ্যে লিখতে হবে।
এখানে সাইড ইফেক্টটা কি ম্যাম একটু এক্সপ্লেন করবেন?
সাইড ইফেক্টটা থাকবে না,
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে।
বাকিগুলো থাকবে। লাইক এখানে প্রিকন্ডিশন গুলো, একটা স্টুডেন্ট যখন মানে একটা লাইব্রেরি ম্যানেজমেন্টে এনরোল করে এবং ওখানে যখন সে রেগুলার বই নিতে থাকে, সো ওর ডিউ রিপোর্টটা তো দেখা যায় খুবই ইজিলি। সো প্রিকন্ডিশন থাকবে যে ইউজার শুড হ্যাভ আ প্রপার অ্যাক্সেস টু দ্য সিস্টেম। সো ও যাতে ঢুকে দেখতে পারে, ইউজার শুড বি ফ্যামিলিয়ার উইথ দ্য সিস্টেম, যাতে ও চালাতে পারে। পোস্ট কন্ডিশন হচ্ছে দ্য সিস্টেম শুড বি এবল টু টেক extracts the body in a logical or physical constraint. The system should return to the main option. So whenever, so post condition means you should be able to extract the data and you should give some time to yourself to understand what should return to the main option. Alternate option is a different case. That if you have if this doesn't happen, what we can do? It's something like that. Like if the student ID is not valid, the system gives a response to the student.
Basically, alternative option ki ma'am, we will be talking about the exception handling and the error.
No. Suppose student ID is not valid. হ্যাঁ, alternate option হচ্ছে if the student ID is not valid, the system gives the response to the user. These are some validations যেগুলো আমরা usually দেই না. If the date range is not valid, the system generates error message. If there is no book found for a student, the system should return the message to the user. Okay, so you will ask something for and you will get the return. You will think. So এটা আমি বুঝে ফেললাম, right? So non-functional requirements, what are the non-functional requirements? Define system properties and constraints. For an example, reliability, response time, storage requirements. Constraints are define system properties and constraints, reliability, response time, storage requirements, constraints, input, output, device capability, system representations. Process requirement may also be specific, mandating a particular system. Programming language or developed method. Non-functional requirements may be more critical than functional requirements. It may be more critical than the functional requirement. If these are not met, the system is useless. So non-functional requirements classification. Madhabai Paran.
G. Non-functional classifications, product requirements. Requirements which specify that the delivered product must behave in a particular way. For an example, execution speed, reliability, etc. Organizational requirements. Requirements which are a consequence of organizational policies and procedures. For an example, process standard used, implementation requirements, etc. External requirements. Requirements which arise from factors which are external to the system and its development process. For example, interoperability requirements, legislative requirements, etc. শেষ ম্যাম। আমার পড়া শেষ।
Okay. So this is the non-functional requirement type. So the non-functional requirement, under the non-functional requirement, we basically have three types: for product requirements, organizational requirements, and external requirements. So in the for product requirements, we have efficiency, reliability, portability, okay, and usability. In the efficiency, you have performance requirements, you have space requirements. So when we talk about organizational requirements, we have delivery, implementation, and standards. When external requirements, so we have interoperability, ethical requirements. Inside the interoperability, you have the legislative requirements, which is privacy and safety. So this is the pyramids. This is the entire hierarchy of non-functional requirements. এটা কি বুঝা গেল কিভাবে নন ফাংশনাল রিকোয়ারমেন্টস গুলো প্রথমে প্রোডাক্ট ওয়াইজ ভাগ হয়ে যায়, অর্গানাইজেশন ওয়াইজ ভাগ হয়ে যায়, ইঞ্জিনিয়ারিং ওয়াইজ ভাগ হয়ে যায়, and then we keep pulling things from each other. Okay. Example: a system goal. The system should be easy to use by experienced controllers, and system should be organized in such a way that user errors are minimized. A variable non-functional requirements: experienced controller shall be able to use all the system functions after a total of 200 trainings. After this training, the average number of errors may be experienced user shall not exceed 2 per day. So experienced controller shall be able to use all the system functions after a beggar or a winter. এটা কি বুঝাতে পারলাম? So এখানে একটা description দিয়ে দিছে যে a system should be easy to use by the experienced controllers and should be organized in such a way that the user errors minimized. This should be your system goal. So variable non-functional experienced controller shall be able to use all the system functions after a total of 2 hours training. Okay. After this training, the average number of errors may be experienced user shall not exist 2 per day. It means to reduce the performance, reduce the uh, level of bug from the system. They have trained the controllers, okay, and he also came to understand what's happening. So these are some requirement measures related to functional requirement, like speed, size, name of reliability, robustness, portability. সবগুলোর সাথে মেজার লেখা আছে। স্পিড মেজার করতে আমাদের লাগে হচ্ছে প্রসেস ট্রানজাকশন পার সেকেন্ড, user event, then user event response time, screen refresh time. These all are integrated to support. So প্রতিটার সাথে আমরা কিভাবে রিকোয়ারমেন্টটাকে ম্যাপ করবো এটা বলা আছে। যেমন ধরো রোবাস্টনেসটাকে আমরা চেক করতে পারি, ওদেরকে জিজ্ঞেস করে টাইম টু রিস্টার্ট আফটার ফেলিয়ার। সো আপনি কখন চাচ্ছেন কোনো ফেলিয়ার হলে কি সাথে সাথে রিকোয়ারমেন্ট ফাস্ট হয়ে যাবে? So percentage of event causing failure. Okay. আজকে এতটুকুই থাক, ফাংশনাল নন ফাংশনাল নেক্সট দিন আমরা ছোট্ট করে পড়ে শেষ করে দেবো। আচ্ছা, আজকে ক্লাসে আরো কোনো বিষয় আছে জানার?
ম্যাম, প্রেজেন্টেশন কি আমরা 6 তারিখে কি প্রেজেন্ট করবো নাকি সাবমিট করে দেবো জাস্ট?
প্রেজেন্ট করবেন।
ম্যাম, আমি দেখতে পাচ্ছি যে আমি গ্রুপ 1 এ ছিলাম, বাট আনফরচুনেটলি এখানে আরো কয়েকজন ছিল, ওরা হয়তো নিজেরা আরেকটা গ্রুপ বানায় ফেলছে আর কি। হ্যাঁ, সো এখন দেখা যাচ্ছে আমি গ্রুপে একাই আছি। ক্যান আই Give the presentation alone.
No. বাবা আপনাকে ছেড়ে
Then
দিল কেন? ওরা এত বড় ভুল কেউ করে জীবনে?
মানে I cannot see যে এখানে আর কোনোই আছে, সবাই পাঁচজন পাঁচজন করে গ্রুপ নিজেরা করে ফেলছে।
আপনাকে সরে ফেলছে কেন? এখানে
জানি
কি
না।
সবাই আছে গ্রুপে? আপনি গ্রুপ 1 থেকে যান, ওদের সাথে অসুবিধা নেই। একটা গ্রুপে 6 জন থাক, কিন্তু আমার এই ক্লাসে 30টা স্টুডেন্ট, 5 6 30, 6টা গ্রুপ হওয়ার কথা, সবটাতে 5 জন করে।
এখানে গ্রুপ আছে এখন 1টা 2টা 3টা 4টা 5টা, হ্যাঁ 5টা গ্রুপ।
নিশ্চয়ই আরো 4জন আছে যারা গ্রুপ করে নেই।
হ্যাঁ আমি সহ এরকম আরো 4 জন আছে।
ওরা কোথায় আছে?
ওরা গ্রুপ 4-এ আছে। মোহাম্মদ রাইহান উর রশিদ, সৌন্দর্য ধারা, দেন কাজী মোহাম্মদ মুবাশ্শের। ক্লাসে কি আপনারা কেউ আছেন?
আমাদের ভাই একটা তো কি 6 জন আছে? আপনি গ্রুপ 4-এ চলে আসুন মাথা ভাই। গ্রুপ 4-এ 3 জন আছে।
মানে গ্রুপ 4-এ ওনারা কেউ নাই আজকে, ইভেন আজকে তারা ক্লাসেও নাই যে আমি একটু কন্ট্যাক্ট করবো।
আপনি কোন গ্রুপের সাথে কমফোর্টেবল, ওই গ্রুপে চলে যান।
মানে
একা তো
কমফোর্টেবল
করা যাবে না, একা করলে আপনি অনেক মার্কস পাবেন না।
মানে এখানে ইজ দেয়ার সামওয়ান উড লাইক টু টেক মি, মানে আমি মেসেজও দিছিলাম, দেখো ওখানেও কোনো রিপ্লাই নাই। এখানে কি গ্রুপে কেউ আছেন যে আমরা কোনো গ্রুপে কাজ করতে পারি আপনাদের সাথে?
হ্যালো,
এনিওয়ান?
ম্যাম আমাদের তো 5 জন আছে, উনি চাইলে 6 জন জয়েন করতে পারে।
আর যে মাথা ভাইকে নিবে, যে টিমে আর কোনো কাজই করতে পারবে না, সব মাথা ভাই করে দিবে। So who wants to take মাথা ভাই?
জিহাদুল
6 জন
ভাই,
কি হবে?
হ্যাঁ করে যাও, নিয়ে নাও।
ঠিক আছে ম্যাম।
জিহাদুল ভাই কোন গ্রুপে আছেন?
জি আমি 5 নম্বরে।
থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ, থ্যাংক ইউ। ওকে, থ্যাংক ইউ
5
ম্যাম।
নম্বরে এত মানুষ, অসুবিধা নেই। Okay, thank you. So guys, see you on 6th of April. Eid Mubarak to all of you. আমি ওই দিন হয়তো মিটারমে খাতাগুলো দিব। তোমরা যদি এরকম করে পরীক্ষা দাও, মিটার আরো খারাপ হবে, ফাইনাল আরো খারাপ হবে। এইবার সবাই লাড্ডু গুড্ডু খাবে, ঠিক আছে? সো আমাদের জন্য দোয়া করো। ঈদ মুবারক টু এভরিওয়ান। ওকে,
ঈদ মোবারক ম্যাম।
ঈদ মোবারক ম্যাম।
see you all after the Eid. ঈদ মুবারক। Bye-bye.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম
জিহাদ
ম্যাম।
ভাই, জিহাদ ভাই আমার নাম্বারটা আপনাকে দিয়েছি, কাইন্ডলি